Hi there. Thanks for having me at London's Calling. And thank you very much to all the organisers and sponsors for organising such a great event. My name is Gemma Blezard. I'm a Salesforce MVP, and I'm also the CEO of the Architect Club and founder of Ladies Be Architects. I'm here to talk to you today about architects. It's, after all, my shtick, but I'm here to understand more about you as architects and those who are potentially going to hire architects, what your shtick is and how you can differentiate yourself in this really tough, crowded, noisy market. Why me? Why have I come to talk about architects? Well, I've been a solution architect for probably about six of my 13 years in the Salesforce ecosystem. I've been working towards becoming a Salesforce certified technical architect, and I really am quite passionate about the bigger picture and the how around Salesforce, which is why I founded the Architect Club in 2019. It's all about ensuring and optimizing for project success. Now, this directly relates to some of the challenges that we have in the market at the moment. As you know, Salesforce has pledged to create 4.2 million jobs in the ecosystem by 2024. This creates a great opportunity for those of us who've worked in the ecosystem for several years to really assist in helping this economy grow, but also grow sustainably and grow wisely. Isn't it noisy out there for us at the moment? As we know, our Salesforce Architects is a huge area of growth for Salesforce at the moment. They've reported a 41% need up since last year in the ecosystem. And as Salesforce is working towards that goal of building the economy, it's really important not only that there's just training available to set partners on the right path, but that as architects, we are creating spaces for those people to grow wisely. Now, I did a job search today and I found 73 Salesforce architect jobs on Indeed, loads of them. We've got a new Salesforce Architects home, which is provided by Salesforce. And when you go on Trailhead, there are 8 different career paths that are shown to you for those people who have actively made the choice to work in the ecosystem. And then you've got the certification program, and then you've got the review board. So it is getting a little bit noisy out there. And I found certainly on my own journey to CTA, and as I've been growing professionally as an architect, one of the biggest challenges for me has been the direction that I want to take in my career. Now, I took a completely different direction since as I started my own business, but that was the decision to do that was fed by a lack of direction for me in my own career. Why has this 41% growth in demand even arisen? Well, we know Salesforce grows all the time. I mean, the guidance, you only have to look at the public guidance every year for growth to see that Salesforce is penetrating more and more household names. There is a heightened focus on industries and solutions that can operate across those industries. And at the partner kickoff last week, the message was talking less about closing deals faster and putting the customer at the center of what you do, but more about working smarter together. So that shows me that Salesforce isn't just CRM anymore. Salesforce is now one piece of a much more complex system landscape on your average project these days. That means that stakeholders really want to reduce risk, and they really want to optimize their people, optimize their budget, and optimize the short amount of time that it actually takes to build Salesforce. Now, where do architects fit in with that? Well, architects are all about driving positive outcomes and reducing risk. And the way that we align our architectural, the way that we structure that is to think about 4 different areas around Salesforce, or the how around Salesforce. Think about your roadmap, what you're going to do to deliver, to whom and by whom, and when. I've worked on several projects where we've got started and the customers bought the licenses, and then when we've actually gone to do the implementation, there's been really all that is known is that they want Service Cloud and they want Sales Cloud. The how is missing. And it's when the how is missing that you see projects get derailed, that you see solutions over-engineered, that you see risks coming in. And you see potential in many situations, and this is just based on my own experience, Salesforce becoming legacy eventually because of that lack of vision and lack of strategic direction around what you're going to do with Salesforce once you've got the licenses. The second part is around design, so giving thoughtful consideration to not just risks that exist now, but those that could happen in the future. And that means you've got to think about your company's growth plans and strategies. What's the headcount plan looking like? What's the revenue growth strategy looking like? You don't need to know the numbers, but roughly if you know what the plans are in percentage terms, then that can give you that can give you inputs to help inform your decision making and problem solving. When you're designing, architects balance design against requirements, priorities, legislative requirements, any operating models, policies, and also building design standards. We're saying you can, yes, we know Salesforce is very quick to set up, but we're saying, yes, you can do that, but it doesn't mean that you should. We see a lot of projects hit the wall when these 4 areas have not been considered. On the delivery side, architects establish ways to optimize the quality of solutions. But I think the only way they can do that responsibly is by balancing that with a learning opportunity for your team. If you or your company insists on implementing Salesforce to a very stringent methodology, then think about why that is in place. Is it in place for compliance? Is it in place because that's the way we do things or we've always done things? Think about what learning and growth opportunities that you are creating for your team. If you've bought Salesforce and you have administrators coming on board, you know that we all know that Salesforce is creating these 4.2 million jobs. But then once you've given the job, how do you make that job useful? How do you turn those people into value-giving, outcome-focused professionals? That's the next side of that's how architects can assist in that way. And then finally, governance. So taking ownership of Salesforce. Ownership is something that we at the Architect Club value very highly. We help our clients create operating models and help them to understand that in order to prevent fires, that there is a direct correlation between strong sponsorship and engagement when Salesforce is understood to be a living system that can be continuously maintained, and that something you need a strategy for. So how does all of this translate to architect careers? We know how architects give value on a project at a high level, but how do they actually work together? Well, we recently published an article on Salesforce Ben, thank you very much for having us, where we did some work and we pulled together our skills and experiences to look at some of the various roles that architects could be assigned to on a project. We took these roles and responsibilities and translated them into an analogy of a nightclub. When we look at the solution architect, we're talking about the party planner. That's everything that's happening inside Salesforce, when, who needs to be where, at what time, who's allowed in the VIP area, and how do all the different solutions, such as the cake and the music, how does it all come together to create an amazing party experience? The technical architect is like the door person. They're interested in what they need to know what's going on inside Salesforce so that they can give information to other people or other systems that are outside Salesforce or outside the club. So their focus is around making sure that the right messages are getting through the door and the right people are allowed in and out at the right time. On the data side, we've got the DJ, the data architect, who is defining and designing a sustainable data architecture and making sure that everybody's able to dance without interruption. Then we have the enterprise architect, the club manager, looking at all the architects, an all-encompassing role, including the customer business, making sure that everything's ticking over to keep the night and the party as successful as possible. And then finally, the transformation architect. This is a role that we have defined ourselves at the Architect Club, which is defining a target operating model, basically all of the how around how Salesforce continues to run, setting the vision, understanding which direction the nightclub's going to go in. That could even involve internally marketing Salesforce to other departments and managing resource, managing governance, and managing other stakeholders. So again, all about optimizing opportunities for efficiency and reducing risk. So I'm not going to go into an awful lot of details. I'll let you read this, but the whole purpose for these roles and responsibilities is to define a separation of concerns and actually see how these roles all fit together to address all the various needs around the Salesforce program to help it be more successful. So our solution architect, our party planner, is responsible for the design, is responsible for everything that's happening inside Salesforce, including data preparation, if it's going out of Salesforce, and processing if it's coming inside Salesforce. They're looking at the backlog of work. They're designing standards and strategy for configuring Salesforce. They're putting design standards together, but their primary focus is on ensuring that the system is functional while delivering an amazing user experience. There's a lot of crossover with other concerns. So when I worked as a solution architect, I worked on multi-cloud implementations. I worked on complex app exchange packages, but I worked with a technical architect because I had to make sure that invoice data was structured correctly so that it could be consumed by an API that the technical architect was working on. So there are a lot of overlaps, but primarily this is where the concerns for a solution architect are around the quality of what's being delivered, how it scales. So whatever solution you design, if someone's going to, let's say a client comes to you and says they want to build a workflow rule, an admin might say, okay, we can do that. A solution architect would say, well, workflow rules are going to be largely redundant in the next few years. It's all about flow now. So those are the kinds of conversations that they're having. Notice that they are leading teams of consultants and administrators. They're ensuring that those people are growing with quality, scalability, performance, insight, and usability at the back of their mind all the time. They're also strategically planning how Salesforce will be delivered and governed. Back to your door person, so your technical architect, their responsibilities lie around designing the system's place, where it fits in the wider landscape, and what is its role as a single source of truth, if any. I've worked on projects where Salesforce is not a single source of truth at all. It is merely a window into the single source of truth. And the technical architect's job is to understand the risks and constraints and optimize that remit, now optimize that directive so that you're still respecting the strategy, approach, and quality of the technical architecture, but you are ensuring that you are creating that your team is creating and reviewing high quality code for a start, but that also the system is performant. This is all the more important as we go into event-driven architecture. That we have performant components and performant data. We have data volumes that are optimized. That we have performance being optimized, especially when we've got large data volumes or high privacy needs. But also the way I've worked with technical architects as well is that they are concerned with ensuring robust environment management, release management is consistent and is controlled. So they're concerned with stability, scalability as well, security, performance, environment, and high quality solutions that are programmatic. Moving on to the DJ, the data architect. I've worked with several amazing data architects, and there are some wonderful companies out there that actually do this job for clients who will take their data, will compile it, will create and optimize it for Salesforce, and ensure that that any APIs that need to consume that data are appropriately designed, and they usually work with a technical architect for that. I've also worked on a project where a data architect was responsible for the data model in conjunction with me, the solution architect, so I had to create the experience, but also the technical architect, so that they knew how the data in one database table would translate into whatever table in whichever other systems needed to be informed of that data. So they are calling out risks and issues associated with large data volumes. They are managing data between external systems and middleware. They might even be building APIs directly in the middleware. And I would at least expect a data architect as well to be leading conversations about backup and recovery and business continuity around data. So they do work very closely with technical architects and solution architects, and in some situations I've been assigned to a project as both a solution architect and a data architect, because I've had the skill sets needed for each of those roles. Enterprise architect, the club manager. This is the expert who is responsible for the journey, helping businesses align their roadmap to the benefits that they will see, aligning everybody in the various stakeholder groups and ensuring that the customer can see those benefits as quickly as possible. Whether that means helping to align priorities with budget, leading a roadmap discussion, looking at how the business is planning for Salesforce and the deliver and govern side of the journey, and also working with C-level sponsors as well. So one of their primary roles is to ensure that the customer's getting value for money, that the sponsors are engaged, that the roadmap is well planned, and that there is an execution strategy for that planning. And then the transformation architect, the nightclub owner responsible for executing the vision. Notice how the words leading and strategy have appeared for each and every one of these roles. This is what differentiates an architect. As a transformation architect, you're leading on the vision. You've worked really closely with the sponsors on the client side or the business side, whether you're consulting or not, and you understand what the business is trying to achieve and why. And your responsibilities lay around making sure everybody remains aligned to that vision and remains engaged throughout all levels of the project. So you need to be able to communicate at multiple levels. In terms of planning as well, very heavily involved in putting a roadmap together, but also in planning for how the business will very effectively manage the change that's coming around having Salesforce or completely transitioning to digital platforms. So they are focused, their focus is very much on a leadership and management level. One of our transformation architects is effectively heading up the whole Salesforce program, which means leading on the client side and enabling them to make the decisions they need to make using his extensive experience. I think about 30 years or something, 25, 30 years. But also on our team's side, helping to ensure that all of those architects have an escalation point, that they can stay aligned with the vision, and that they have that direction that's fully aligned. So they're concerned with vision, enablement, people, budget, engagement, and stakeholders, which obviously leads to my next point around how we all work together. And I've actually aligned this with the various resources that Salesforce has kindly provided us on the architects enablement side around design, deliver, roadmap, and govern. What I've tried to show you here is that whilst whilst there is a separation of concerns, there are very much overlaps, and everybody has a part to play in fulfilling strong work in design, roadmap, deliver, and govern. But some roles are more concerned with some principles than others. For example, as a transformation architect, your focus is going to be on roadmap and governance more than it would be on deliver, whereas an enterprise architect would also be responsible for roadmap governance and delivery, and solution data and technical architects would be concerned with design, governance, roadmap, and delivery. So it's designed to be a team partnership. And in terms of some projects will need all roles, some projects won't need all roles. I'm going to talk to you in a moment about how you can differentiate them and yourself. So for employers, when you hire, I have a call to action for you. I went on today and I found 73 Salesforce architect roles, and they were all various different. They all had various different requirements and various different standards around them. So my ask to you as an employer, when you hire for your Salesforce project, work backwards. Instead of just going, oh, I just need a body, think about the need. Could it be that you've got a dirty Salesforce org that just needs throwing away and starting again? Have you got over-engineered solutions that maybe need re-engineering? Is there a new product or team that wants to come on board? Or are you planning to merge a couple of orgs together? Then once you've understood your need, think about the concerns that you have around those needs. Are you concerned about data quality, integration, politics, a new application coming on board, deleting an application? Are you concerned about budgets, etc.? Because that helps you to then go on and map the concerns to potential disciplines. So if you're worried about data quality, you need someone focused on data. If you're worried about how you're going to integrate Salesforce with 3 other systems, then perhaps a technical architect and a data architect is what you need. If there are company politics and you want to buy an app off the app exchange and you want to keep it in your own org away from the rest of the business, then I would suggest engaging with an enterprise and transformation architect to just talk through those concerns and try to find a strategy for overcoming those concerns so that you can simplify your org landscape. After all, a simplified org landscape means there's one less thing to maintain. There's only one thing, or a single source of truth, and one thing to maintain, but also you are reducing the amount of API traffic the more you condense, which means that you're reducing the impact on data centers processing and therefore indirectly reducing the impact on the environment. So all the decisions that you make really do have a knock-on effect on our daily lives. Once you've mapped your concerns, look at the severity of them. What are the complexity and impact of the concerns that you have? If I've got issues where my clients are going to conference events and speaking to, not clients, if my salespeople are going to a conference and speaking to clients and trying to sell to them, and it turns out those clients are already customers but of another part of your business, that's quite a severe impact, right? So the risk of not having CRM is much higher than the risk of everybody keeping things in their own areas. Of having a CRM. Just scratch that. Gathering the risks. So what risks are in play? This isn't just technical risks. We've got to start bringing ourselves outside of the technology. Are there risks of staff turnover? Is that going to affect your Salesforce team that you want to stand up, right? Is all your data in 5 different databases and there's no single customer number? Well, think about what you're going to need to do in order to make Salesforce useful. Don't load in the dirty data because you'll only have to clean it up later. Oh, that rhymes. But thinking about the risk of that data, there's no master for your customer. Well, that means that you need to make a master. So thinking about how you address those risks is really key. And if it comes up in implementation, it's too late. Then finally, map it to its skills and experience level. If your concerns and severity and impact of your concerns are minimal, do you really need an architect? It's very tempting to go, I just need a contractor who knows Salesforce who can just come and fix this for me. But actually, they can only do so much. When they land boots on the ground, they're going to ask you questions all about the journey you've been on so far, and they're going to make suggestions. So think about how big you want those suggestions to be. I would say anything where you have a minimum to high risk of complexity, certainly an org merge or a new team coming on board or a new system being integrated, yes, you need an architect for sure. For architects, what's your shtick? Well, so what this is about is mapping what you enjoy, your strengths, your skill sets, not just your certifications, and think about how you want to differentiate yourself in an increasingly crowded market for architects. If your shtick is creating engaging user experiences, creating great practices for designing and governing Salesforce, working with multi-cloud and multi-apps, then maybe you'd like to be a solution architect, maybe not a party planner. If your shtick is integrating Salesforce with other systems, improving security and ensuring high quality and performant programmatic architecture, maybe your thing is a technical architect. Or maybe your thing is that you sometimes do projects where you work as a technical architect and other projects where you work as a solution architect. If you like compiling data, transforming it, manipulating it, making it fit, personally, I love doing that. I'm happy if you give me 2 days, a bunch of data in a Salesforce org, I'll happily load it in for you. Probably badly the first time, but it's always a learning journey. But I really enjoy doing data. So compiling it from a multitude of sources, advising people on how to keep data quality strong through automation or through validation, through reporting and backing, and also strategies for backing it up and recovering it when things go wrong, then maybe you'd like to do some work as a data architect. For those who these are more experience-based roles. For those of us who really like working with Salesforce but enjoy the strategy, for me, that's my shtick as well. I like planning roadmaps. I like mapping it to benefits. I like winning people over. I like planning businesses for change. So enterprise architect is a role I've played inadvertently on some other projects. And then finally, on the transformation architect side, just thinking of my wonderful colleague Anthony and what he does, he holds everyone accountable to the vision. He helps our client design business operating models. They've created a strategy for the team and productizing Salesforce for the business. And they've recognized that Salesforce is a longer term thing, that it is an ever evolving beast. And they're very committed to ensuring that that doesn't get out of control. So transformation architect is a key input to that. The challenges, the market, this is a bit of opinion on the market as I see it at the moment. The great thing is Salesforce is selling into household names. It's a fantastic opportunity for all of us to really gain experience on some very cool stuff. Like shout out to everyone who's working on vaccine management right now. That is just, some of the projects that we do are just so cool. What that also means is that we are exposed to more complex projects. And when that goes bad, when that gets really ugly, is when there's a lack of vision and sponsorship, because it creates a disorganized team and a disorganized and unstructured org. It can also create multiple orgs in different places. And if it's not unified, then actually it's very easy to lose sight of what the architecture is completely. The great thing is 4.2 million jobs coming into the Salesforce economy. I personally am a huge advocate of this. I personally have delivered a training session for the furloughed and unemployed last year because I want to help this economy grow. The risk that we have is that we could be building a market of professionals that are primarily focused on setting up Salesforce technology as Salesforce is selling into household names and having more complex projects. So the risk that I'm trying to help mitigate at the moment through education and thought leadership and so on and action leadership is to prevent a burning field of Salesforce dumpster fires. And that there are so many ways that those happen. But the biggest one I've seen, the biggest fire starter I've seen is when requirements are focused on features rather than benefits and user experience. When people are not focused on in requirements gathering and it's purely process and technology, your lack of engagement is through the roof. Trailhead, how wonderful is Trailhead? I started doing this pre-Trailhead. I keep grabbing my hair. I started doing this pre-Trailhead when it was just videos and Salesforce help and training. I'm going to ask you an honest question and say, how many of you have just skipped to the bottom of the Trailhead module to do the quiz? The ugliness that could come from this is ill-informed advice. There are a lot of people looking to fast track themselves to certification. The certification program at Salesforce is going from strength to strength, and I'm a huge advocate of it. However, there is a lot. The ugly side of that is you have many people out there calling themselves architects who have no real project experience, no strategy, no architectural mindset or leadership skills. So it's unclear what architects actually do sometimes. It's unclear why they're different from consultants, admins, and developers. And I've also spotted an ugly trend that certification is itself in some places has created a trend of entitlement in the market. And that's really tough for candidates who are genuinely working really hard to get themselves experience and get themselves certified, and seeing other people wanting to just cheat and fast track their way ahead. It's really tough for employers as well, because how do we know, how can we test through interview unless we come up with creative ways to recruit people? And then finally, graduate programs and apprenticeships. I love them. I absolutely love them. And I want to see those programs being channeled into into a really useful way. I don't want to see more graduates and apprentices deployed as a cheap resource on a project. My call to action for you, if you are one of those wonderful people and companies who have pledged to create an entrance to the Salesforce market through graduate programs and apprenticeships, is to ensure that they're appropriately mentored and to think about a roadmap of project experience that you could grow for them. What projects would you strategically choose for or invite them to volunteer to do now versus what sort of projects would you encourage them to do later on in the future? I've seen graduates thrown in at the deep end, and it is so unfair on them, and it is so unfair on clients and businesses as well, as they're dismayed by lack of experience versus what has been sold to them. So I implore you as an employer to think about the types of work, the types of opportunities you're going to expose your people to, and how you will create meaningful learning experiences for them out of those opportunities, whilst creating your amazing customer experience and business experience if you are an end client, end customer of Salesforce. So how to differentiate yourself? Well, first of all, employer, stand out and differentiate yourself as an employer, because the amount of job descriptions I've read where it's asking for an architect, and I've read through it and gone, you're asking for a unicorn. And that's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. There's not much of a direction out there at the moment. So we're trying to create one. Stand out and claim your spot. If you've got architectural thinkers, don't discount them if they don't have the experience you need. I'm going to tell you a very quick anecdotal story. The lady in my team, and she, on her CV, did not have the experience level we were looking for. However, she had a lot of skills. She was rejected at first stage, but then she challenged us and she said, I do have these skills. I do think this way. Here are examples of how I've done this. Please reconsider. So we got her in for an interview. We sent her a scenario. She solved it, and she justified every single requirement very well strategically. She gave the pros, the cons, the considerations, and we took her on because she's got that right. She's got that mindset that we want to develop in her. And she inspired me as an employer because she challenged and she proved that she was able to do it. As an architect or a consultant wanting to become, or a developer, if you're looking to become an architect in the future, don't expect it to happen overnight. And just because you've conquered half the pyramid, that doesn't necessarily make you an architect. Work on projects for a few years, find something you really enjoy. And it's tempting to binge on certifications and just plow through them. Yes, I did that because I had a bench period. So I was able to do that because I had a lot of time where I wasn't delivering projects and could focus on that. But if I could do it all again, I'd be going back and taking on these certifications as I come up against challenges in projects I'm working on. I worked on a private sharing model for 18 months as a system administrator. So I found sharing and visibility really quite straightforward. I implemented Service Cloud for a TV company here, and then I took the exam around the same time because it was fresh in my mind. And every question I was able to say, yes, I understand that, that's this. And it was something that I knew day in, day out. Another way to differentiate yourself, I've been reading this fantastic book called Becoming a Salesforce Certified Technical Architect by Tamim Barry. He just released it a few weeks ago. Yes, it's talking about the review board, but there are nuggets in here that will help you as a professional, whether you are a consultant, admin, developer, whatever. It will all help you in how you design and structure your thinking when you tackle building on Salesforce. Take opportunities to grow your leadership skills. That includes presenting. Take the opportunity to grow in areas like emotional intelligence, because that will help you to refine your communication styles for different roles. Take opportunities to present, take opportunities to demo, take opportunities to run workshops, build artifacts, and build diagrams in your daily life so it becomes second nature and you'll find yourself growing into that role naturally. And finally, start thinking of more than just Salesforce. If you work in consultancy, chances are you have a statement of work and you're delivering X, Y, Z. Service Cloud, knowledge, live agent, cases. That's my scope. That's what you have to deliver. That's your job. But what's more important to you is not just what's going on in Salesforce. What's more important to your customer is more than what's going on in Salesforce with knowledge management and live agent and case management. This is about how these people are doing their daily jobs. So actually what it looks like, whilst it might look like live agent, knowledge management and case management, it can actually be 17 integrations from other systems because you are because your customer service agents need access to the finance system to look at billing queries. They need access to the technical platform to look at login issues and things like that. So it becomes a much bigger picture. So think about how you design live agent and how you design knowledge management and how you design case management is going to affect that entire experience. After all, what you design is your customer's brand to their existing customer base. So you don't have a small role in that in any way. And that's it from me. I've finished my lecture. Thank you very much for sticking with me. And if you have any questions, we do have our Salesforce Ben article, which is available on their website if you would like to dive into a little bit more detail. And I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you.